Hello everyone, my name is Natalia Lauk and this is play along tutorial for L'Orage or The Storm by Johann Friedrich Burgmüller. You can find this piece on page 91, book 4, Developing Artist Series by Faber and Faber. So it's a very fleshy piece, I would say. So if you want to impress someone, if you are late intermediate level, this is perfect piece for you. The trick is to maintain the running 16th notes to create this stormy feeling. So when you will be playing it, those constant 16 notes have to be running, not stopping. So to practice those, make sure to start this piece incredibly slow tempo and everything detached. I recommend practicing with no pedal whatsoever, just zero pedal and staccato. So when you will be comfortable with the entire piece, the trick is going to be how to maintain the equal line of 16th notes. Because believe me, our hands, you see, the fingers are in different length. That's going to create a problem if your 16ths are not equal. You're going to play something like this on the ragtime side, but that's not the effect you want to achieve in this one, right? To avoid this, there's a little trick that you can do. Make sure not to start the group of 16th notes with an accent. Make sure to crescendo toward the end of this group. So don't play like this, because that's what's going to create if you try to start with an accent. Make sure to start as quietly as possible and bloom towards the middle of the figure. Also, when you will be playing in a faster tempo, make sure that your fingers are staying loose and not clinging to the keys. Because after the hammer hit the string, after it made the sound, what can you do about sound? Nothing! Exactly! So you have to let it go as soon as possible, okay? So, sound is produced, let it go. Also, be very careful with the pedal, because pedal can create a mushy and muddy feeling when the harmonies are mushed together under the pedal. That's not the effect you want to create. Let's say I would press my pedal down for entire first measure. Exactly. So it's not very clear, right? It creates this muddy feeling that it's not very exciting to hear something like this, right? You want to hear. So your pedal work has to be not very deep. Make sure not to put your foot all the way down. Just a little bit up and a little bit down. So it's going to be like a butterfly pedal, like this. Tim, 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 tim. Another trick to help you with those 16th notes is when you're you can speak those, you can actually play those. So if you can say something like this, tiki tiki taka taka, tiki tiki taka taka, tiki tiki taka taka, tiki tiki taka taka. When it's clear here, it will be easier to play it here. So I recommend just to go and say it along with the playing. And faster. If you have trouble with tiki tiki taka, which might be the case, go with something silly, you know, I don't know. I usually go with alligator. Alligator helps because you want to make sure your alligator is exactly the same length. You don't want to do alligator. So it's going to be the line of alligators. Alligator, okay? You can also say crocodile. It's a little bit more trickier. Crocodile. I think it requires clear diction. Also, the simpler one is pizza. So whatever helps. Listen to that. Okay. So practice all of those. Choose your favorite. You can even come up with something that works personally for you. Also, this piece is of extreme contrast, right? This is l'orage, the storm. And you know the storm doesn't stay in one place and doesn't blow with the same, the wind doesn't blow with the same speed all the time, right? So it goes and back off. It's like it leans on you and then it backs off, okay? So it's all gonna happen within the first two measures. You go from pianissima to sforzante by the third beat of the second measure, like this. So in order to create this feeling, this the stormy feeling, you have to make sure that you're not starting your phrase loudly, okay? Because in this case, you will have nowhere to go. So start it very, very quietly, very, very lightly. So remember, loose fingers, as free as possible. Release as soon as you made the sound. So I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna take all the repeats. I'm gonna play it first slowly. Try to follow along, and I recommend you to play hands separately first, okay? And even practice pedals separately first. And then try and put it together, okay? 1 knee and a 2 knee and a 3 knee and a 4 knee. Did you notice I made a couple mistakes on the way? If you did, don't make them. Anyway, I missed a note in measure 9 before I went to the second section, the middle section. And I also missed a note, I think it was around measure 17. So make sure to get those notes in, don't miss them. So before we go to the faster tempo, what I want you to talk to you about tricky middle section. So the middle section has a tendency to sound like this, always like a ragtime. Why is that? Because people usually hang on to the thumb, which starts the 16th notes. So make sure not to start with an accent. Make sure to crescendo your phrase. And turn your hand, pivot your hand towards your pinky, towards your fifth finger. And make sure your first and second are very, very light. You're not pressing on any of those notes. Also, left hand is even more tricky because you start with F in the middle section. If you look at measure 10, to be precise, measure 10, look at left hand. And then you have to repeat the same F. And if you do it like this, it's very hard to play it equally. Plus, it's going to sound very harsh. So make sure when you're starting, let your F go a little bit sooner than you're supposed to. Do you see there is a, under bass F in the left hand, there is a tie. Let this tie go a little bit sooner. So basically it's going to sound, instead of, it's going to sound like this, 1. So you're going to use the pedal to cover those lifts that you're going to do in left hand. Again, practice those slowly. 1 knee and let. 1 knee and release. 1 knee and release. 1 knee and release. Okay, so make sure you release your hand. Otherwise, it's going to be incredibly hard to play. Just imagine in fast tempo. So even you starting with forte, remember all of your phrases, you'll see forte in left hand, but if you start loud like this, it's going to be hard, plus you'll use incredible amount of energy just to get through this section. So it's almost like holding a very heavy weight and trying to do this. Okay, so make sure that your weights are tiny, okay? In this case, you will be able to move through this section easily and through the entire piece. So spend less energy. Sorry, I'm supposed to play the right notes, and you do. So remember, don't play the F sharp in D minor, because you only have D major section starting at measure 22. Right? So be attentive. Measure 22 is a change of key instead of D minor. You moving into D major, okay? Also, let's talk about third section, the final piece of this music. If you look at measure 25, you will see, and measure 27 kind of stops. Yeah, I know. Here's my cat. She wants to collaborate on this piece. Oops! Would you do it without your clothes? So, anyway. Measure 25 and 26. So measure 26, the movement kind of stops. What happened exactly? That means this storm for a second went away and the clouds opened up and you had the sunshine coming through. So that's exactly this moment. So that's why you have this wonderful romantic lyric moment. And then the storm comes back. as like cat. Cat comes, cat goes away. So anyway, I'm gonna play now in medium tempo. Go ahead and try to follow along. Again, I recommend practicing hands separately, stopping one section, rewinding back. You do agree? Yeah, I know. You're supposed to agree with me because practice makes perfect. Just the repetition is gonna help. Would you help me to record that? Do you want to walk on the keys? Sorry guys, it happens every time I'm trying to record. She just comes. I'm thinking about blocking my recording studio with the room divider so she cannot come. We will miss her, definitely. Okay, so medium tempo, follow along. 1 and the 2 and the 3 and the 4 and So that was the medium tempo for this piece. Did you notice that I lost my focus just for a few moments? And that's what exactly happened with my right hand. Because what I forgot to do, I forgot to unlock my hand. Okay, when your hand is in a locked position, 4 fingers, you see, remember the fingers are different length, right? If you keep your hand in a locked position, it's harder for fingers to produce even 16th notes, okay? So make sure, instead of trying to do it all with fingers like this, so make sure to adjust your hand position depending where you are, okay? So for example, the very first 16th group, you see, you go and your second finger is going, by the way, the fingering is very important, so make sure to follow the suggested fingering, it's pretty good. So your second finger goes up, brings your hand out like this. So the whole piece actually, you will notice that your hand going up and down, in and out, in and out, in and out, like this. So let's now try faster tempo, but before we do, we're gonna acknowledge several very important moments. So let's look at measure 15. Do you see this arpeggiato chord on the right hand? make sure to rip it out. Rip it out, okay? I mean, if you leave it inside, it's not gonna sound and it's not gonna look this brilliant as you want it for sure for this piece, okay? And make sure the pedal and sound stops right after this. And then you have ritenuta at the third beat of the next measure. So you're gonna stretch time right there. Okay, wish me luck with this one. It's not that easy. So let's try the performance tempo, allegro, fast. Well, I didn't play it perfectly. Did you notice some things along the way that I didn't do correctly, especially on the first page? It was in measure 7, measure 8. So I hope you'll catch those mistakes and you won't do in your performance. But before you achieve this level of dexterity and this level of speed, just make sure first to get it in a slow tempo, very comfortably. Because even if you perform in a slower tempo, not allegro, let's say you perform allegretto. You see, it's tricky in a slower tempo. It's still gonna be stormy, okay? So don't chase the fast tempo as your goal, because you wanna make sure it's convincing in a slower tempo first. So my best wishes with this piece. It's a great music. I hope you have fun with that. Enjoy.